affect community development. And so we've recently hired a new person to do policy in Southern West Virginia for them. This is the first time we've ever done that, but we realized that policy hinders us from doing a lot of these things that we want to do. So we hired somebody to kind of research the policy, educate people. So one of that is the dilapidated buildings. I mean, there's just, you can't do anything with them. I mean, there's just no pool of money. So what we've decided, like if something, one of the pieces that we're putting together is like if somebody sells a piece of property on the courthouse steps, then on that day of sale, then there's a timeline before you either have to do something with that building, renovate it, or tear it down. And then we would talk about one of the other pieces is, and this kind of is more Richwood probably heavy, but increasing the tax structure for people. You know, taxes would go up incrementally the longer that you leave something sit.
It depends if you buy at a public auction. The United States Supreme Court says it's got to be assessed that. Unless you transfer it, it just stays in the family. It doesn't assess that.
Right. Well, there's a lot of work to be done around that. There's a lot of education. There's a lot of ins and outs and loopholes and things that people don't know. I mean, we just assume that we see something sitting there rotting that somebody should be responsible for that. Somebody should tear it down. Well, it costs money. You know, it costs money to tear things down.
I want to say, in New York, people say, well, if you don't like it here, go back to New York. But that's not what I'm trying to say. In certain communities, depending upon the zoning, if you had your house burned down, you have X amount of time to either rebuild it or tear it down, or the wind guard. They can't stay like that.
They can't stay like that.
I like to see that here.
And that's you know, like in Richwood, it's causing major causing major safety issues now. It's become a public health issue.
Is that policy or is that zoning?
It can. Every communities are different. Townships are different.
Yeah,
so it could be zoning. It could be
like Mercer County doesn't have any zoning in the whole county.
Arlington doesn't currently have any zoning.
no zoning. No zoning.
There's no zoning.
That doesn't hurt. But policy might be a way to
it's county probably.
Or restrictions.
Yeah.
Or restrictions.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. So Blueprint or Bluefield and Princeton are both Blueprint communities, and they're both in Mercer County. They're dealing with that. Mercer County has no zoning countywide. So sometimes that's community, sometimes it's city. It just depends. That's the beauty of West Virginia. It's also everything is so kind of it is. It is. It's like 3 different states. You know, whatever.
Excuse me, been to Bramwell?
Yes, we try to recruit them to do this program. Yeah, and I mean, so there's, you know, I'm not saying we're going to swoop in here and save everything, fix everything, but we'll at least get some plans in place that then will actually, the coaches will help you do those. I mean, they will push you to do those plans. They won't just, because I think a lot of times, you know, if you do a strategic plan and you don't have a third-party person come in and kind of facilitate that, it tends to be it's inside looking in. I mean, sometimes you need that outside looking in. And
or it's just plain confusing.
Or it's just confusing, or it's a lot of self-interest involved in which direction the plan goes. So our coaches, I think all with the exception of one are from West Virginia. One is from Virginia, but very similar to here. They've all done practicums so they've spent the past year doing a practicum of this program in a community. For instance, one did his in Thurman, which I think according to the 2010 census has 9 people as their population. But he just had a team of people that, you know, either lived right there that wanted to try to make Thurman more attractive for tourists because they have all the rafting and they have all these things going on. So we've varied those practicums in size of communities and tried to diversify what communities they do practicums in so they would have a broad range of community development experience. And the other thing that we're going to do is on our website we'll have a specific place for Blueprint, and you'll have a login. It'll just be generic, but it's for the team members to be able to log in. We're going to have a forum on there where you can talk to other teams, other coaches, ask questions for hub staff, and it'll be contained, and the public can't see that, so we can answer questions and things. But that gives you a chance to integrate with the other teams, because when you meet them at the kickoff, you may find that they're doing something that you want to mimic or something that's working there, and this gives you a real opportunity to meet with them and see what they're doing that works, and they may want to take ideas from you. I know a couple of the communities don't have like a signature event, so that's one of the things that they want to do, so they're kind of known for something. Like you have the Roadfield, Elkins has the Forest Festival.
That's the biggest.
Yeah, so in some of these communities that don't have something like that, that's something they can be known for. So that was one of the things they want to work on. So it's really what you want to make it, and you can already be thinking about things in your mind, because the coach will definitely want to brainstorm and kind of mind map what your lines of thinking are as in terms of what you want to do. But I think one of the best pieces of this is the fact that they will teach you how to do a community campaign. They teach you how to fundraise as a community, and they'll teach you about civic engagement and how getting people involved to, educate you and advocate around policy has worked in other communities. I mean, that they have gotten some things pushed through legislation that have helped them through some of these barriers. I don't know how big of an issue it is here, but I know in Princeton and Bluefield, one of their major issues is substance abuse. I mean, they just can't, everybody's going to work, like in Virginia there, they can't get anybody from West Virginia to work in places there, they can't pass drug screenings, they don't have the basic skills to do manufacturing type jobs. That doesn't plague every community, but that's also something they're working on the blueprint. So you can tell it's just it's a pretty broad range of things that you can cover with this, because community development comes in all different, I mean, it's not packaged and it doesn't work the same way in every community. We
How
understand that.
would you help in the instance of substance abuse, if that's?
Well, workforce development, I guess, is part of
Mhm.
that, and just having, for instance, in Princeton, their team leaders from Community Connections, which their FRN is housed in, I think, with that, and that's what they do. I mean, they house the tobacco prevention program. The America's Promise Coalition is based out of there, so that was a big issue for them. So that's why they designated that person as team leader, because that's the main thing that's keeping them from making progress in Princeton is drugs. There's a lot of drug dealing and stuff going on in their downtown. That's where their arts community is. So everybody just assumes that the arts community is dealing drugs, and they get a stigma attached to them.
So Princeton is part of the blueprint?
Princeton, so it's Marlinton, Hinton, Sophia, Princeton, Bluefield, and Ridgewood are the 6 teams this year. So,
In many of these things I've seen, what happens is you get too many projects going, and then it gets too messy. It's best to stay with one, get moving.
it's probably best to stay
At what level is that dictated?
It's whatever you guys want to do. I mean, we've had communities that try to do multiple projects and been successful. Depends on the size of the community, the amount of people. Because, I mean, this just doesn't have to be your team. You can, if you want to mesh with the on-track team, if you were talking about Greater Marlinton, I think there's other groups here that you can pull into this team to just get a real community-wide idea of what the change is. So there's no limits to it. I mean, I wouldn't say that there's really limits to on-track, just in terms of there are the 10 kind of standards that you want to meet to become a Main Street, and that's basically what on-track works towards. So it's more specific. This is more of like a visionary process, but we try to keep communities from doing the stock vision. It's a great place to work, live, and play, or and that's what most communities are looking for. But there's other ways to get to that.
I like it that we have a coach and that somebody will be looking on the outside, looking in, because, the trees are so thick you can't see the other side of the
Right,
fence.
yeah. Well, and
That's
communities
important.
tend to be very egocentric about things. I mean, that they don't realize sometimes what this looks like to other people, or how they see it to look better. I mean,
It gets too subjective.
It is, yeah, yeah. Because
Was there-
everybody thinks, you want to think that your town is great. And I think I'm an outsider coming in. I love Marlinton. I love this. I love all the communities I'm working with. But you might have somebody from out of state that drives through Ridgewood and says, "What a dump," and but they have so much potential.
I'm excited about just to hear some of the towns. My cousin was born here in West Virginia, but we didn't live here.
Right.
And
There's a lot of
we're transplants
too.
and-
Yeah.
But his family's from West Virginia, Quinton area, Ridgewood.
We have a lot of transplants here that end up staying forever, and they love it, and they invest just as much